What's going on, everyone? There was an absolute massive update in Lost Ark KR today. We're talking new player experience, PvP changes. That's right, gunslingers get nerfed. We're talking T1, T2 material changes, enhancing changes, dungeon accessibility, gold, boosting, all sorts of different stuff happening in the game, including an Arc Pass. But going through the content of everything that we saw in these notes, I can't help but think that it's very possible we are going to see some of these changes that have been made on the release version of our game. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. In fact, I was on Twitter earlier tonight, I guess this morning, waiting for Lost Ark to post something about NA beta at all. And I saw Saint, who also commented saying that he very much so thinks that it is very possible that we will see these KR changes, at least some of them, the earlier stuff, in the release version of NA and EU. For those who don't know, Saint is a well-known streamer in the Lost Ark community, twitch.tv/Saint1, and he has been an incredible info provider of the game to a lot of people who have dropped by his channel, and he has been playing on the KR version, and I like to think that he's got a pretty good idea of how things go with Lost Ark, considering he's been playing it for the last 3 years nonstop. So I'm with it. I definitely think some of these things could change, but let's go into what some of these things are. I'm not going to go too in depth with it because there is a lot of text. There is a lot of stuff here. We will put a link to these patch notes in the description below. And as always, if you enjoy the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and let's break it down. So the first thing coming in is the Arc Pass. Now, for those of you who played ArcGage, try not to get too much PTSD. It is a battle pass, but it's not the Arc Pass from ArcGage or anything like that, all right? This one does have materials that do work towards your character's progression. Looking through all of it right now, here's the Arc Pass. There's 3 tracks to it, all right? There is the base track, which is free. There is the premium track, which comes with everything. And then there is the super premium track, as they called it. Now, just to let people know, the super premium track, which is more than double the premium track, the super premium track literally has cosmetics. It has a wallpaper. It has an artifact favorability box. It's got a Noble Banquet head selection. It's got Noble Banquet top selection, Noble Banquet bottoms, and Noble Banquet weapon. All right. It's a cosmetic track. All right. Now, the normal Arc Pass, which everyone has access to by default, it has a bunch of different rewards that you can choose from here. You choose one from these 2 options. I'm not sure if it's you choose one track or the other track, or if you pick one or the other as the reward as you go down it, but at each 5 level intervals, you get the same thing. Now, the premium track, this is one of the paid tracks. It does give you just an extra row of rewards that would be equivalent to what looks like this number 2 track right here. It looks like a 1-to-1 copy over as you go down it. So that is nice. But basically what this Arc Pass does is this actually kind of cuts out a lot of necessity of grinding that you would have to do on an alt. Now, you can still make the same progress. You just have to, alting is very lucrative in terms of getting materials, getting gold, all that stuff. But the Arc Pass, you guys can go through and look at it, each individual thing that it provides yourself. This is something that is coming to the game. This is something I don't think we'll have on release, just because I don't see us. It just doesn't make sense for us to have it on release, because a lot of this stuff is like tier 3 materials unless they changed it for us. But who knows? Going from there, they have a new player experience that they are doing. So for those of you who played the alpha and you did the prologue, and there was that class-specific prologue that you did, there is a new public prologue, Forgotten Land of Troy, has been added. You will now learn the basic controls and battles of Lost Ark along the story beginning of your adventure as you progress through a new prologue. So when creating a character, function has been added so you can check the story for each class on the class selection screen, and change the prologue completion reward from the Sincere Rabbit headband to the workshop goggles. So they're just, updating their new player experience, their prologue process that people do. But as such, they've also added a bunch of new things for people who, when you boost a new character as well. So making new characters in Lost Ark is very common, and people often do boost a new character as well. This is the Adventures Pass and the Room of Growth have been added for when you jump characters through the systems in the game to move them along at an expedited rate. You can now do the Adventures Path, which is going to let you go back and learn the basics of the, sailing, life skills, basic content, all that stuff that you would have done while leveling up, like those dungeons and whatnot. This is basically a micro tutorial condensed down into a very specific experience that teaches you all those things that you did while leveling. Once you complete that, you will then go be sent to the Room of Growth, which has been also added. The Room of Growth is a place where you will go and it will teach you all those other things you would have done while leveling, like your mount, like your pet, crafting, engravings, disassembling, and refining items, optional functions as well, jewels, and tripod succession. So instead of, figuring these things out at a vendor randomly, this is going to be a room that is added in where you just get to try these things out, learn about them before you actually jump into the end of it. Added knowledge repository. The knowledge repository is something that you can pass knowledge of the continent you have already experienced on to other characters in the expedition. So if you've already completed a bunch, main story quest stuff or dungeon material, lore items, zone completion stuff, that you are going to be able to just pass on immediately to your alts through the knowledge repository. Then we are moving into, they are having their event right now. This is something that will not apply to us on NA and EU because it will not be summertime when we get the game. So overall, this event won't really apply to us, but just so that people know, the event is just something where you get these Maharaka leaves, which is the token for it, and you get it from the events at the location or from doing your normal content like dungeons or Guardian raids or Chaos dungeons, Abyss raids, all those things, and you just trade it in here to the vendor for rewards that come from them. This is another thing in Korea that is something that we will not have on release, and this is the Hyper Express and Jumping Ticket. The Jumping Tickets and Hyper Express are things that you are able to use on either current characters at certain item levels or brand new characters in order to move them along. The Hyper Express for existing characters lets you get them up to 14, 15 eye level through a very expedited process. It gives you a level boosting growth rewards that will help you get up to item level 14, 15. And you can only use one of these per account. If you make a new character, you can do the Story Express, one per account. And this will get you up to 1302. So keep that in mind. If we do get this in the future long term, which I believe we will, this will be one of the things that there will be. So, pick wisely what character you want to do these things for, because you can only do one per account. But it's just being used to get new players, quickly through the earlier stage process of the game, get them caught up to the 1302 area, which is where a lot of the player base is, in that 1300 range. And then the Hyper Express is to get people into that 14, 15 plus range, which is the higher end of where, people are as well. They want to move people into this higher content. And that's kind of the purpose of this ticket. Moving into that, we have the Nostalgia reorganization. This is the biggest thing. This is where we're looking at stuff that can very much so be changed for our version. All right. The T1 and T2 gear and materials is being greatly consolidated and condensed. You are no longer going to have different, brackets of item level ranges of gear. It is now all going to be 302. So instead of it being 302, 340, 370, it is now all just going to be 302. Tier 2 gear, instead of 802, 840, 870, it is now just all 802. So this is a huge change in the system. And part of why they're doing this is because they are also changing the materials that you get and used for enhancing them. The enhancing materials that you're going to be using are now going to be consolidated and condensed as well. So instead of there being a different material that you get for, the 302 gear, the 340 gear, and the 370 gear, it is now all going to use the same universal material. Now, all of this is them just talking about the different ways in which the gear has changed for any of the pre-existing gear. So again, if we just get this from the get-go, none of this stuff here matters for how this works. If it comes in, after release for us, then some of this will matter. It just talks about what they convert to. I'll let you go through each individual one on your own to see which one applies for you. If maybe, you are playing on a Korean server by chance, but there's a lot here. But yeah, so they have lowered the amount of goods required to inherit on equipment as well. On top of that, they've downgraded the amount of materials required to make Abyss equipment, which is really nice. Sorry, a little bit of dry mouth. We have changed the stats and equipments and trinkets in tier 1 to tier 2 section. So just them, lowering the values of certain things, changing the values to what they are because of the way they're changing the systems. And so here we are, the equipment refining system. Here are the new item level brackets for the Chaos Dungeon, but these refining materials are what you are going to be using for your upgrading now. So instead of there being the, small Gavenna Emerald, medium Gavenna Emerald, large Gavenna Emerald, 3 different emerald types that you use for enhancing, it's now just going to be one universal breakthrough stone that you'll use. And that's great. So instead of you having to do different tiers specifically to get materials, as long as you're doing tier 1 content, you get the materials for it. All right. And so that is a really nice thing that is going to help a lot of players be able to keep up with the gearing process in the game. And there's no longer a window of being gated by eye level in terms of getting the materials, specific materials to further enhance higher. It's now all the same tier. This is one of those things that would be really good if we had it at the beginning of our version so that it was a much more eased in process for a lot of new players. It would be a much, much greater new player experience for people compared to what the current system is, which still isn't that bad, but this is just completely better and way more straightforward and not as, in depth in terms of, what you need to know and what all these materials come from and what they do and which one's which, all that. It's just all universal, and that's just nice. Chaos Dungeon, as such, with the changes, they have changed the item level requirements of the Chaos Dungeon difficulties. Here they have it all the way through to 1080. These are the only ones that matter to us right here. The 250, 240, 380, 420. These are going to be the ones that we will have available initially on release. Maybe not even all of these on release, but these are the first tier of Chaos Dungeons that will be available. Tier 2 is 460, 500, 540, and 580. Actually, these might even be part of the T1 as well. It's a little bit of an in-between based on those item level ranges. I'll be curious to see how that's changed overall. In accordance, the T1 and T2 reorganization, they've changed the entry item level and difficulty of the dungeon for Tier 3 Chaos Dungeons. Before item level was 1050, now it's 1100. So yeah, so this would be Tier 1 right here, all through here, and then this is Tier 2, all through here. So Tier 2, here down, Tier 1. So that shows you it right there because Tier 3 is not pictured here. This is something that if you played the alpha, and this is where we're talking about why it's possible these are changes that we could see in our version. One of these things on here right now, I'm not going to say which one because, well, we'll see. In accordance, the Chaos Dungeon in Tier 1 and Tier 2 section have been improved so that it can be entered repeatedly with a lack of resonance energy. Sounds familiar and sounds like something a lot of people have already experienced on NA and EU. After consuming all of the energy of resonance, you can obtain shards and crystals, which are barter items for each tier. The acquired fragment and crystal items can be bartered for various items through NPC Magician Zeneca. Guardian Subjugation. Guardian Subjugation, they have adjusted the rewards for it and the difficulties as well. This is literally all just them adjusting the difficulties and rewards and values of the content because of the changes that they made with the gearing. They removed a lot of difficulties and content as well from stuff that just wasn't really being utilized. Boss Rush, Hall of Corridors, Corridor of Trials, Hard Cube difficulty, Elite Cube difficulty, Tower of Shadows and Tower of Fates layer by layer floor compensation has now been newly reconfigured. So they've changed the item level configuration and requirements of the floors in order to adjust for the way in which the gearing process has been changed with enhancing. Abyss Dungeons. The removed the gold rewards from T1 and T2 Abyss Dungeons. However, they have added gold rewards to Chaos Dungeons. Chaos Dungeons now give gold rewards. All right, that's really nice. Changed the number of entrances of the Abyss Dungeons in Tier 1 and Tier 2 from once per character to 3 per character per week. That is huge. This greatly helps with gearing your characters early on. Before, you needed to run a lot of characters so that you could get the materials from the dungeon in order to make your gear. Now, by being able to run it 3 times per week on a character, this rapidly speeds up the process of getting the gear that you need or the items that you need in order to make the gear that you want from the Abyss Dungeon. Tier 2 Abyss Dungeon Paradise Gate hard difficulty has been removed. Abyss raids removed Mystic and Keister. The 2 Abyss raids will be prepared so that you can challenge them in a different way in the future. So they removed 2 of these raids because they're going to remake them into a different format. All right. Field Boss focus in the Tier 1 section has been changed to be evenly placed in all tier sections. In accordance with the reorganization of T1, T2 section, the rewards of the map have been adjusted. In accordance with reorganization, some rewards have been adjusted. So this is just them, you know, adjusting other values and rewards and questing experiences with the Tier 1 and Tier 2 changes to further support it. Now, growth support reorganization. This is another one that would be huge. All right. Currently on Russia, if you play it, there is a system where you get these materials that give you these oils that, you know, give you this rapid enhancing process where you get like +3 enhancing per chance, and it's 100% chance every time. That's their catch-up mechanic for it. They are removing that system. The growth support box that was previously paid out will no longer be paid out. However, when you achieve a certain item level and complete the Continent World Quest, accessories and ability stones to help you in your adventure will be mailed to you. The growth support box that was previously paid out will no longer be paid out. Various effects are now applied to help refine each tier for easy growth. And so now 1 through 15, it looks like there's a bunch of different stuff here that unfortunately does not translate the way we would like it to, but it is now a much easier enhancing process that they are providing you that is actually really quite nice. You can see the values here. It shows you the enhancing percentage bonuses that come with it at different tiers and for different types of gear. And these are honestly very welcomed, these increased percentages here. But, you know, having these 100% chances in the earlier gear is really nice and will help a lot with people's progression. Life reorganization, another thing that happened. So they changed some of the items that are used in life skilling. I don't know too much about the life skilling, so I can't really speak to it that much. Adjusted but because of the changes that they've made, they've adjusted the energy consumption used in life skilling. A lot of the materials have now been condensed and consolidated like above into one specific item used instead of there being multiple different items used. So life skilling has been simplified and streamlined as well. Again, this would be really nice early on for a lot of players in the very beginning of the game. Expedition territory. This is your personal island reorganization of the expedition territory. This is the items, crafting materials. This is all stuff that you would do in your housing. That's what this little icon is for it. Your farm and whatnot. Not too much. I don't know a lot about this, but I'll let you guys read through it. But basically, the after you complete the main quest to the Wall of Glory in Western Lutheran, you can proceed by accepting the quest guide Secretary Theo's invitation quest. If the maximum combat level achieved by a character in the expedition is less than 50, the following applies. You can send a dispatch to a general mission that matches your character's combat level. Trade merchant trade sells goods that match your character's combat level. So it's just, changes to your expedition territory. Once you've actually experienced it, you'll know a little bit more about what these notes are talking about. But just some, general quality life changes there as well, and improvements to the system because of, like everything else is going through the reorganization. Existing crafted dishes can no longer be crafted. However, existing dishes can be used. New reorganizations of the crafting, cooking, dinner, barbecue. A lot of things were simplified, made easier, and whatnot as such, just like everything else. They are doing a schedule system reorganization of some of the world events that transpired. This is going to hopefully help with some people being able to attend events on a more regular schedule instead of, at some really wonky times that may transpire. So some of these bosses or specific events have been changed in order to be more accessible. The same Adventure Island operates 3 to 4 times a day according to the specific schedule. On weekend, a total of 2 groups of Adventure Islands appear within the designated schedule. Adventure Island rewards can only be attained through 1 expedition among all servers. When participating in content, if you give up midway or leave the execution area, the number of rewards will be deducted. Improvements have been made so that you can check the schedule for the appearance of 4 types of content in Procyon's Compass. Now, one of the other new updates that they've added in, this is one of the things that they showed at the LOA Mini. This is in your combat hall or Trizion, when you go back to Beatrice and you enter that training room. This is the DPS meter that can only be used while in there. And you're also able to have a boss type added to a scarecrow so that you can just like fight a boss in the middle of the room to do all your stuff instead of doing it on a scarecrow. Guardian subjugation, you can now exit and re-entry. For Guardians, the re-entry function can be used through voting, and re-entry is only possible when the consent of all party members is there. This just lets you re-enter directly into another Guardian raid instead of it being you all leave and then you all go back in again from the loading screens. Instead, this way it just lets you go immediately into it. Chaos Dungeons, we've reorganized the distribution of rewards for each level monster added. The total amount of rewards obtained from the Chaos Dungeons is the same as before. Chaos Dungeon level entry has been changed to match the item level. Added gold rewards monsters to boss monsters and lucky monsters that appear in Chaos Dungeons. After clearing the Chaos Dungeon by forming a party, it has been improved so that the party is automatically reconfigured when leaving. Monsters in the first area have been changed so that they do not disappear during battle. Distribution of appearances in the second area have been compressed. The attack power of the seed monster has been changed to the appropriate level. All that is great stuff. Having those gold added to the Chaos Dungeon. Very quick, easy content that you get through. Dungeons themselves adjusted the amount of gold that can be obtained from the Abyss Dungeon, Well of Araya. They've nerfed the amount of gold that you can get from these, but I believe that is to offset the gold that you are now able to acquire from Chaos Dungeon. So if you want to maximize your gold gain, you have to participate in multiple different forms of content. But it also, they want to have a much more just, steady, streamlined acquisition of gold instead of it being on a weekly basis, right? So Abyss Dungeons were once a week. Chaos Dungeons are every day. So you're able to consistently work towards your gear instead of it being at the start of every week, right? That kind of thing. Those things, great. Inventory reorganization, inventory improvements, island improvements, a lot of really basic quality of life stuff here. Quest reorganization, quest improvements, A lot of this are, some quests were removed, some quests have changed the rewards, some quests you just automatically get now from completing the main story quests, things like that. A lot of quality of life stuff. Improved functionality to guild function customization, guild flag customization. Very basic stuff there. And now the actual big thing I know you've all been waiting for, the PvP balance patch notes. Awakening. Among the battlefield contents of the proof, all awakening devices used in general and in competitive battles have been changed so that they can no longer be evaded. Now, the wording of this is a little weird, and the way they talk about it here, therefore, has been changed so that evasion of awakening by avoidance does not occur in general or competitive battles. So, what it's believed to be and how it's said is that there will no longer be any situations in which maybe a class has an evasion mechanic or something that lets them avoid damage, or, they're able to iframe it, something along those lines. That can no longer happen. Now, I believe you can still be immune to the CC of it via, diminishing returns or the dashing for it. But for classes that maybe had a way to avoid damage being taken at all, or maybe this is that you can no longer avoid the CC of it, you can't dash through it or, dodge through it, anything like that, it's going to hit you no matter what, basically is what they're saying. So long as you're in the way of it or in the area of it, it's not going to be like, oh, it locks on and it's going to hit you no matter what kind of thing. If you're in the area of it and you go through it or anything like that, you're going to be hit. Berserker. Increase the amount of rage gauge obtained when hitting an attack in PvP by 16.6%. So Zerkers, that means you get to go berserk a whole lot more often now. Battle Masters. God of Wind, it has been changed so that an attack abnormality occurs when the attack is hit during PvP. Battle Masters, I know, it's a rough life out there. Spearman. Ooh, this was big. This was actually missing originally. We have changed the cooldown times of skills in PvP as follows. One island, increased cooldown from 12 seconds to 14 seconds. Qianglei Wait, we have changed the cooldown from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. Not enough. Infighter, increased the damage of energy skills by 22% in PvP. Now, unfortunately, that's not the green bar, people. That's the yellow bar. So your yellow skills, your abilities that don't do a lot of damage in PvP already, they got a 22% damage buff. So while that's nice, it's not overly impactful, but it does just bring you a little bit more consistent damage to your primarily spammed abilities that you use for mobility or knockups. Not so much damage. Striker coming in with a nerf. They removed stiffness from the riot skill during PvP. This is the same thing that started to happen with Battlemaster, which made Battlemaster go down the wrong, not fun path of not having any tenacity. Well, fortunately, Striker still does have one tenacity skill, but they are now down one more stiffness immunity than they had before. God of Wind has been changed so that an abnormality occurs when the attack is hit during PvP. Devil Hunter, perfect shot. PvP damage was reduced by 13.3%. Scouter reduced all damage inflicted in hypersync state by 8% in PvP. Crimson Breaker, they've changed the cooldown time of all skills in PvP as follows. Cooldown time previously was 24 seconds, now 28 seconds for Crimson Breaker. It has been changed so that when the attack is hit during PvP, no more damage is caused and stiffness occurs. However, when attacking an enemy with an attack abnormality, the attack abnormality continues to occur. Skill Escape. We have changed the previously cooldown time of the skill PvP as follows, from 20 seconds to 24 seconds. So a nice little nerf to the Scouter there as well. Gunslinger. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Quick Step has been changed so that it no longer causes stiffness when applying the sliding tripod in PvP. Perfect Shot reduced damage in PvP by 13.3%. Focus Shot reduced damage in PvP by 13.3%. Peacekeeper, we've changed the cooldown time from 12 to 14 seconds. Large Caliber Explosives reduced damage in PvP by 9%. And Twilight Eye increased damage in PvP by 12%. A nice round of nerfs on Gunslinger there. They were doing way too much damage. They were way too strong. Everybody knows it. Everybody was playing them in the alpha. You guys were annoying. Summoner, Phoenix damage reduced by 15% during PvP. Hallelujah. Bagron, increased damage in PvP by 14%. Kelsion, reduced the amount of ancient energy obtained in PvP by 9.4%. I'm happy with that change. That was such a big damage ability coming out of Summoner. It was insane how much damage that thing did. Bard, or Ratio, or Aerotorio, the distance that was excessively pushed when the attack was hit in PvP has been changed to be the same as in PvE. Blade, Moonlight Sonic, reduced damage in PvP by 9.2%. Headhunt, they've nerfed the damage of the Strengthening Sun Tripod from 4 seconds to 3 seconds. Destroya, the gravity-weighted area effect has been changed as follows. Now before, when you were using the gravity-weighted area, damage to enemies in a neutral state was increased by 200%. It's now only 30%. So that damage bonus for that situation is now drastically lower. Whew. It's all right. We hopefully won't have Destroyer. Anyways. But then they have an engraving for PvE. The effect of the gravity training engraving has been changed as follows. During battle, gravity gauge recovered at 2% per second, and in gravity weighted mode, the critical hit rate of normal hit and vortex gravity increased by 10%. Now it's by a larger percentage, 10, 20, 30%, depending on it. And the damage to enemies increased by 4, 10, 12% as well. So a little bit of a buff there to them for their PvE. But yeah, that was a lot of balance changes there, guys. A lot of balance changes there. A lot of good stuff. A lot of liking it. It's a lot of damage cut back across the board. It almost feels like they're trying to cut back like the level of burst that there is currently, and so that fights are maybe drawn out just a little bit longer. But hard to say. And this is why you don't play meta. This is why you don't play meta, because if you try to play what's meta and then it gets nerfed, then you're no longer meta, and then you're sad, and now you're trying to reroll. Pick what's fun. They consistently balance and patch the game. This will happen repeatedly where classes will go through buffs and nerfs. Pick what class you're going to enjoy, guys. I promise you, you'll have a lot more fun with the game. And then they just had a couple more improvements and fixes to the game. Some things with the dying system. Some UI improvements. Another one of these things are things that we saw in our version. One of these items in here, I'm not going to tell you which item in the system UI preferences, but there is a feature in here that has been we tested during the alpha. I'm sure you'll notice which one it is. But so the rest of it's just, you know, some nice quality of life UI adjustments and fixes that transpire for it. So really good stuff. Big changes all around. That's a big update, guys. And I do think it's definitely possible we can see some of this stuff in our version of the game on release. So as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll put a link again to this in the description below so that you can take a little more in-depth look at it. But I just wanted to go over the main stuff for you. Have a good one, and I hope to see you all in beta. Take it easy.